Okay, welcome back. Let's go ahead and get started. We are on chapter 3. Welcome, welcome, welcome. The title of chapter 3 is What Makes a Research Paper Effective? All right, let's find out. Chapter 3, What Makes a Research Paper Effective? If you have to write a research paper, you know that it has to be effective. After all, why else would it be so structured and regulated? Making an effective research paper can be intimidating. It can be scary to feel that pressure of having to figure out precisely how to word and format everything so that you can get your point across without wasting precious time elsewhere. If you want to do this, you must know what to focus on, and thankfully, you have this guide here to help. Figuring out how to make your research paper effective is as simple as understanding the true purpose of what you are setting out to do. You want to get in, get the job done as effectively as possible, and get out without wasting any time or any words. You do not want to bore your readers, nor do you want to leave them wondering why you did not provide enough depth or insight into what you have written. Highlight that sentence. If you want to make your research paper effective, there are 3 key points to consider. First, you want to make sure that you have an effective research question, and make sure that you also make that question as apparent as possible. Apparent meaning so clear that even a child would understand it. Okay? Then you want to show that you have done the work to answer that research question so that you can test your hypotheses about it. Finally, you want to provide your answer. If you make sure that you do these 3 steps, so go ahead and highlight that paragraph. And how I highlight a paragraph is just take a line down the left side of the paragraph and then a line down the right side of the paragraph. That tells me that that whole paragraph is, I need to go back and reread it as I'm referring back to this book. If you make sure that you do these 3 steps, you will be able to ensure that your paper is, at the very least, serving the purpose of what it sets out to do. From there, all you will have left to do will be to figure out how to flesh it all out in the most effective way possible. All right, the research question. The research question is the starting point of any good research paper, and if you do not have a solid research question, the rest of the paper will be lackluster as well. For this reason in particular, you will find that you really want to focus on this point first. You will always want to make sure that your research question is effective and solid so that everything else can fall together nicely. Think of this as your paper's foundation. If your foundation is weak, everything else will fail as well. Let's take a look at what your research question must be. Sometimes your research question will be provided for you. You will not have to do anything to make it. This is especially true if you have been given a topic by a professor to explore. However, if you do have to make your own research question, you must make sure that it will work for the entirety of your research paper. This will require you to come up with a question that will meet the following standards. So just understand, just let me clarify, you are creating your research question. That's a whole part of the learning here, is you developing a research question based upon your service and the needs in your community. So your research question should be clear. You should have a question that is clear and readily understood without being loaded with all sorts of jargon. This means that anyone in the target audience, regardless of their experience, should be able to get the gist of what you are exploring. Your research question should be focused. You must have a narrow enough scope that you are able to answer the question completely within the duration of your paper. Remember, this is a paper, not a book. Your research question should be concise. You want to make sure that you use up the least amount of space possible so that you are not losing track of what matters or getting off topic, which is very easy to do. Your research question must be complex. Your answer should never be a simple yes or no at the end of it. For example, did the Egyptians build the pyramids? As a blanket question, it's probably too simplistic of a question to get into, but it could be made more complex by asking, how could the Egyptians have been able to build the pyramids? Notice how, with that second question, you would have to go into and analyze the information about what is being explored. You would have to figure out whether they had math and technology to be able to make such perfect shapes. And that could be something that you could research. So your research question should not have a yes or a no answer to it. Your research question should be arguable. This is where things get complicated because many people like homelessness. There are many views on homelessness. Some people don't have empathy for homeless people. Some people think that homeless people are homeless because they want to be. That's arguable because I disagree with that. This is where things get complicated. You must make sure that you are answering something that is potentially arguable or debatable. The idea is that you must be able to defend your position with the research that you are going to do. What would make my heart soar is if 2 or more of my cadets in the classroom take one phenomenon and argue both sides of it, or share perspectives from both sides, from two sides, from opposite sides. You would impress me. When you can manage to hit all those points, you know that you have the right question. However, making sure that you form the right question may be a bit more nuanced than you intend for. To get the right question, go through these steps. Identify the general topic. For the most part, you should be able to write research papers on topics that you genuinely care about. Start broadly, and you will be able to narrow it down over time. For example, you may start out with ancient Egypt on your way to figuring out what your proper research topic will be. Do general preliminary research. Yes, do research before you research. Unless you are already familiar with the topic, you should begin with some quick searches to determine the current research being done. This will also help you figure out if you have any other questions that you may have about the topic. Consider your audience. Is this paper for your degree? Is it for a job? Figure out what the audience is and keep them in mind. Do people in your intended audience care about the question you are thinking about? Brainstorm. Start writing down any questions that you come up with now. Do not feel like you need to figure out the perfect question right at this moment. If you think of it, write it down. You can eliminate it later. You can expand on it. It can give you ideas to get to the next question or jumpstart the next question. But ideas, write them down. Evaluate. Now you can start thinking about the questions themselves. Evaluate all your potential questions based on the standards listed above. If any of them do not meet all 5 points, eliminate them or alter them to make them fit. Then choose your favorite one. Research. At this point, it is time to start considering how to get moving on your question. If you determine that you can, in fact, do the research within the information and materials that you have available to you, then you have probably chosen a good question. If you find that research is too difficult, it may be worth going back and choosing another topic instead. Searching for the answer to the research question with the methods section. So searching for your research question using your data collection methods. You must also make sure that in an effective research paper, you take the time to do the research and organize it properly. Many of these different research methods will make use of data or experiments that are presented, such as in a science research paper. This section must provide enough detail so that your research or experiment can be replicated. Within this section, there are a few key points to remember as well. Within this section, there are a few, that's badly worded. There are some key points to remember that will keep you working toward what you need. You will want to remember to keep in mind the following two key points. Keep it past tense. You have already done the research. You must present your information in the methods section in the past tense. Detailed but brief. You need to you need to toe the line between providing enough information that your research can be replicated, but you want to also leave enough room for discussion in the next few sections. Your section's method, your methods section will probably have a few key points within it. Of course, the particular sections that you will include will be dependent upon the scope of your study and how you design your research or your experiment. In general, you can plan on having the following 4 sections. So I'm going to keep going because he's saying that we can develop our research question by using our methods section, and he's going into what is entailed in the methods section. So I'm going to see if he comes back to how we generate our research question using this section of our paper. Because your research question is the first thing that you develop. So everything comes after your research paper. All right, but I'm going to keep going. So on the page before that, on page 19, participants, 4 subsections. If you have completed an experiment, you probably have some participants, especially if it is a sociology or a psychology paper. You will want to list out exactly who your participants were, how they were chosen, and anything that makes them unique as a group. Note if you choose randomly or if you had some criteria that went into it. Materials. Anything that you use during your experiment or research needs to go here. This includes equipment, books, websites. I'm sorry, guys. Answering the questions with the results section. So I'm going to jump over to page 21 where the subheading is answering the question with the research question, because I think we've done enough about the research question itself. If you go back to pages 16 and 17, it tells you what the research question needs to be. And we're going to brainstorm in class your research question, okay? So I'm going to skip that subheading of searching for the answer to the research questions and jump over to page 21, answering the question with the research, with the results section, okay? So what he's saying here is when we start writing our results section from the results that we have from our research paper, then these are the things that we should consider. All right, let's hope that that's what we are about to read, okay? All right, answering the question, our research question with the results section, page 21. Finally, you must answer the question effectively as well in your results section, okay? This is what really brings everything together. If you do not take the time to carefully answer your question, you will actually miss the entire point of your research paper, which was to answer your research question. However, it is not enough to simply state what the answer to your question was. It is time for you to justify, and I'm going to add explain and elaborate on what happened. While the methods section will help you come up with an organization to your experiment, the results section is necessary to justify everything else. To make an effective results section, you will need to do the following. So maybe that's what he was doing with the methods section. He was telling us how to make the methods section, but don't sweat that because we're going to do that. That's our, we're going to do that in class. All right, here we go. Results should justify or in some cases contradict your claim. Okay. You want to report your data honestly, and sometimes it turns out that we were on the wrong page altogether with what we were researching. That's not going to be us. Let your results section do that. It should simply report what you got out of your research. You can extrapolate from that later. Okay, I agree with that. Your research section should summarize. You want to offer a summary of the results and not the raw data. You should be writing them in a quick summary, and it should be brief. It does not have to present each and every part of the numbers and how they worked out, because that goes in your methods section, how you collected your data. Your results section is going to summarize what your data, what it is that you came to when you did your experiments or your polls or your surveys or your interviews. Remember your tables and figures. You want to make sure that you have the tables and figures there to make sure that data can be glanced at quickly. This allows for you to avoid having to write out the results because they are all displayed and your reader will not have to read to get them. Start with your figures and then write around them, okay? Especially for the homeless or YMCA after school programs, you're going to have some data, some statistics to show, okay? Report statistics. There we go. If you need to make use of statistics, and you probably will, you need to worry just about reporting them. You do not need to explain any relevant statistical models. Assume that someone reading your particular paper is already familiar with everything that you will be discussing. In terms of formatting, keep the following points in mind as well. It should always be written in the past tense. All results were already determined. Make it objective. No interpretations here. I agree with that. In your results section, you're just you're presenting the data. Okay, so there's no opinion or subjectiveness about that. Make sure the results follow your formatted standard. Okay, that is the end of chapter 3. So let us move on to the notes here. So I only have a few notes for this chapter, okay? And all I wanted to really focus on in this chapter is your research question. So I need you to add to your notes that your research question should be clear, focused, concise, complex, and arguable. We are going to do some brainstorming in class, but it would be wonderful if you go ahead, do your brainstorming, come up with about 5 questions, ask your parents based upon what you have done and seen in your service learning. So if you have done, and I'm going to use an example in class, I think I'm going to use the environmental services, and I'm going to walk through how to brainstorm and how to come up with some ideas. But if you've already done that, or if you could start doing that now, then it's going to make the task easier, okay? So what is a problem in the community, okay? What did you experience in your service learning? And what is a question that can be researched that you can look for answers to help solve the problem? All right, guys, that's the end of chapter 3. That one was pretty short, okay? Thank you for your attention, and I'll see you at chapter 4.